Tonight on Let It Rip, it's a debate as old as time. What's better, the electoral vote or the popular vote? One state lawmaker has an idea she thinks is the best of both worlds. An agreement with several states for our electors to support whoever wins the national popular vote. So is this just representing the will of the people, or is it skirting our country's constitution? But first, state lawmakers trying to crack down on hate crimes. But the representative behind that bill says some of the coverage is flat out wrong. Critics say it violates free speech, but he says they're making an issue of something that's not even in the bill. We're breaking it all down. And so it's time now to let it rip with State Representative Noah Arbit, the lawmaker behind the bill, and pro-life advocate and conservative Rebecca Kiesling, and yes, Fox 2 anchor and attorney Charlie Langton with us as well. It's good to see all of you. We only have a few minutes. Let's get right to this. This bill, this ethnic intimidation bill in Michigan, is so important, Noah, to you that you decided that it had to go and become a bill. Why was this so important to you?
Well, it was actually the #1 issue that I campaigned on. I grew up in West Bloomfield in the Jewish community, and I will never sit idly by and watch as any community in the state of Michigan facing rising hate violence. The fact is that we have seen an unabated rise in hate crimes in the state of Michigan for the past 10 years and really the past 30 years. And our law that we passed 35 years ago, 7 years before I was born, hasn't been amended even once. And the result is that we are very ill-equipped to address this rise in hate crimes. And so I introduced this legislation, as I promised my community in West Bloomfield that I would, to make sure that Michigan is no longer a national laggard, but a national leader in hate crime prevention, intervention, and response. And that is exactly what this legislation does.
And so this legislation is known as an ethnic intimidation bill.
The Michigan Hate Crime Act.
Michigan Hate Crime Act is the technical name, but it is an ethnic intimidation bill. Rebecca Kiesling, there is not even a mention of the word pronoun in the entire bill. We've read it a million times. It's not slipped in there. It's not hidden in there. Yet it seems a little bit odd that many people who are leaning right and far right, who claim fake news and anything they don't like, created a narrative around this that just isn't true. The word pronoun is not in the bill. Does that concern you that some Republicans were publicizing that and actually getting it published in reports?
The reason why you had a little confusion over the name is because it was the ethnic intimidation law, and it's now been changed to the hate crimes bill, and there were two things that were added. One is to add intimidation. It used to require assault or battery, and now it's mere words, mere intimidation. As long as someone feels mental anguish or feels threat or they feel terrorized, then someone can be subject to $10,000 fine, 10 years in prison. And recently, the Michigan Supreme Court just last week held a hearing on compelling judges to use pronouns, and the ACLU made a statement saying that it is terrorism, that people feel terrorized when you don't use their pronouns.
We got to get back. One moment. We got to get back to the Michigan Hate Crime Act.
I'm a lawyer.
But Rebecca, you're a lawyer, so let's separate some things and look at facts here. Let's look at facts here.
I'm Jewish too.
Hold on. We're going to look at some facts here. In the Michigan Hate Crime Act, there is not a mention of the word pronouns. Yet headlines from Newsweek to Fox News to all these other places, because they talked to right-wing people who told them that this is a pronoun issue. Does that bother you at all? Does that bother you at all?
It's because the ACLU's official position and the LGBTQ community has taken the position that it is terrorizing to them when you don't use their pronoun. And so it's not just that, it's speaking out against, like, Riley Gaines, who says that she's terrorized having to shower with another competitor who has male parts. And for her speaking out, she's called a bully, and she could be subjected to this law.
I want to get Charlie into the mix, but Noah, these words, semantics matter, and there's a lot of nuance. In the bill that I read, feeling terrorized, feeling frightened, feeling threatened, those words to many people who are on the right are saying this is very subjective. If I say I feel threatened, but you didn't do anything to truly threaten me, could I then go try to get you in trouble with the law?
Well, that's why the legal standard is something called a true threat, right? And the fact is that this language that's in the bill defining what intimidation is, very, very narrowly defined, comes straight out from the stalking statute, MCL 750.411. That is the stalking statute. At no point in the 35 years that the Ethnic Intimidation Act has been charged by Republican and Democratic prosecutors, or the stalking statute has been charged by Republican and Democratic prosecutors, has anyone ever raised a question about this. And the fact is that, look, unless you are going to shoot up a synagogue or a black church or assault people at a gay bar, you don't have to worry about being charged under the Michigan Hate Crime Act.
But Charlie Langton, if you have an issue with pronouns, if you have an issue with LGBTQ people, and you are standing on the side of the road with a sign saying something that's objectionable about people who are gay or who are trans, by the law, can that person be charged under this Michigan Hate Crime Act?
Well, I mean, let's get an example here. If you're trans, you identify as a woman, okay? But you're born a man, okay? You want to, under gender identity, I think you want to be referred to as she, right? If I called you he continuously, and I threaten you because of that, I'd say yes, under this bill, that would violate this bill. And what's wrong with that?
You don't have to threaten them with physical harm.
Yes, you do.
Yes,
it does.
Hold on. Rebecca, I got to ask you. You said you're a lawyer. Noah, the state lawmaker, is saying that the language does not say that. You're saying it does, but you have, and you read the bill. It does not require
physical harm.
She got the sentencing wrong, so I don't really think she did read the bill.
It requires a mere intimidation. Of course I read it. I'm a lawyer. Of course I read it. I testify before legislatures regularly, and words matter. This adds intimidation. Threat of intimidation.
Intimidation was defined in the bill, I believe, right?
Yeah, if you feel mental anguish.
Does it also
that is not in the bill. That is not in the bill.
Feel terrorized.
Which is the same as stalking. That is how Michigan. This is tried and true.
The problem is ACLU says that trans people feel terrorized when you don't use their pronouns.
Would you believe that the ACLU has been neutral on my legislation? They did not support this legislation.
Rebecca,
they do not support or
in the
oppose
legislation, it says the word terrorized, frightened, or threatened. Do you think that people who are in that community, in the LGBTQ plus community, or any community for that matter, because this covers everybody, that if someone is feeling threatened, terrorized, or frightened, that they should have some recourse by way of the law? Do you think there should
laws.
be?
We have normal laws that protect anybody. How about my people group? You know, I'm called demon seed, evil seed, horrible reminder that if you cared about your birth mother at all, you would have killed yourself a long time ago. I'm told all sorts of horrible things. And you know what? My Jewish family was killed in the Holocaust, and the first thing they did was take away free speech rights, and this would have a chilling effect on free speech.
No, is this an amendment issue here? Do you see how people who have free speech advocates are saying, hold on here, we got to be careful? Even those who are Democrats are saying, I worry about what could happen in Michigan if this is interpreted the wrong way.
Well, first of all, this bill passed with bipartisan support, and I'm very proud that it did in the House, and I'm sure it will in the Senate as well. But the fact is that, you know, just as my bill protects Jews, it also protects Christians. As it protects black people, it protects white people. As it protects gay people, it protects straight people. As it protects women, it protects men. No one in this state should ever be threatened or harmed because of who they are or the community they belong to.
Who decides what threatened really feels like? Who decides what frightened? A prosecutor. So now this is
a jury.
And in the UK and Canada, they're using statutes just like this to arrest pastors who are reading, you know, certain passages from the Bible, and it's promised
you mean
that
to
it
tell
would
me
not
that you think that police are going to go to a church and going to charge a pastor for
it's
intimidation?
happening in Canada and the UK.
But in the U.S.?
I think we're missing the point here, which is that hate crimes are different from all other crimes because they are terroristic in nature. There's never just one victim of a hate crime. An entire community is victimized too. Hate crimes tell all people who share a victim's community, people like you aren't welcome, people like you won't be safe, and people like you don't belong. The fact that this state, in the state of Michigan, that hate crimes against gay people, against disabled people, against people with disabilities cannot be prosecuted is abysmal, and it is high time that we address this and make sure that our
Charlie, do you think that under current ethnic intimidation laws that are in the books in the state of Michigan, that people who are threatened because of those reasons, do you think they're protected?
No, not if you're gay, not if you're gender identity issues. There's a 4 or 5. We only protect age, race, and today, right now.
Race, religion, color, and national origin.
That's it.
But anybody is protected. It adds a penalty. But anybody anybody, just your average person. Look, I got all kinds of threats after my boys died because I testified, against the policies at the border.
Well, the fentanyl stuff
I had all kinds of hate coming my way, and because I was conceived in rape, I get all kinds of hate coming my way.
Let me ask you a question.
There's normal laws that protect people.
But do you think that right now, under this current ethnic intimidation law that's in effect in Michigan, gender identity, sexual orientation aren't included? Do you think those groups should be protected?
They should receive normal protections that any of us receive.
But what if they're not right now? Should they be updated?
Once you make them an elevated class, now.
But what about an equal class? What about equal with those who are Indian or Jewish or anyone who is also
white people? If hate crimes against white people can be charged in this state.
Under your bill, old white men like me are protected, right?
As long as you feel terrorized. As long as you feel terrorized.
You keep saying that. It seems like you're concerned about the interpretation of that.
Yes.
Is there anything being done right now, Representative Arbit, to address that gray area that seems perhaps
it's not a gray area.
To you it isn't, but to her it is.
It is not a gray area. It is circumscribed very tightly in this law.
Talk about that for 15, 20 seconds if you can.
The fact is I didn't write this bill slapdash overnight and put it out. I worked on this bill for months and months and months with the Attorney General, with Republican prosecutors who were high up in the former Attorney General Schuette's department. This bill is supported by 83 prosecuting attorneys in the state. Why isn't there a single Republican prosecutor saying what she's saying?
And this conversation will have to continue, of course, in later editions of Let Her Rip and perhaps at dinner tables across Metro Detroit. We thank both of you for joining us today. Representative Arbit, Rebecca Kiesling, and of course, Charlie Langton. Still ahead, Michigan, you know what? Key swing state. We know that in every presidential election, but soon those 15 electoral votes could be handed out differently. All part of an agreement with several states for our electors to support the popular vote winner. So is that supporting the will of the people or making your vote less valuable? That debate next. Back now on Let Her Rip, we are a little more than a year away now from the next presidential election, which means you'll probably hear more debate on if the Electoral College should stay or go. Well, sort of. Is it possible to have the best of both? One lawmaker thinks so, and she's here now. We're talking about State Representative Carrie Reinigans. We thank you for joining us. And also Michigan Capitol Confidential Managing Editor James David Dixon. Good to see you as well. And our anchor attorney Charlie Langton with us as well. All right, so in a nutshell, this bill that Representative is proposing would say, look, Michigan would automatically cast the presidential electoral votes for the winner of the national popular vote. If this was the case in 2016, Hillary Clinton would have been the president of the United States if your bill was to pass all across the country. You think that would be fair?
Well, I do think it's fair to have the person who gets the most votes win the presidential election. So thanks for that question. And what we know is that the founding principle of democracy here in the United States is that one person has one vote. And we want to make sure that every voter in every state in every election is campaigned to in every presidential year. The president has to win the most votes in their district, which is the entire country. I had to do the same thing, win the most votes in my district. So I think the president should have to do that too. And it's not just me that says it. We have a large coalition, about 24 organizations, prominent Republicans like Sala Nuzis, who are touting this across the state and across the country. I think it's time for Michigan to join the national popular
James David
vote.
Dixon, you know, this whole electoral system was started, of course, back when their founding fathers said, look, we have a choice. Should Congress be able to elect the next president, or should the people be able to? They came up with a compromise, and the electoral system is in place. Many people say this system just is outdated and doesn't serve the people, each individual voter who's out there. You agree?
Well, the genius of the American system is we're always able to change it. They just don't make it easy. So if you want to move to a system of direct election of the president, which this is, go the same way it took to make direct election of senators happen, a constitutional amendment. National popular vote is an end run around the constitutional amendment process, and it would try to correct one ill by creating another. So no one loves it when the Electoral College winner is the popular vote loser. You would really hate it if the person who got Michigan's electoral votes didn't even win Michigan.
But the whole point is it's up to the states. This has nothing to do necessarily with just the Constitution. It's up to the state. Each state gets to decide what their state voted on. What's wrong with making it, as Representative Reinigans will say, more accurate so that each person's vote counts? Because right now, that's not the case, is it?
Well, it's not more accurate because, I mean, under House Bill 4156, Kerry's bill, you could lose Michigan 7 million votes to 0 and still win Michigan's electoral votes.
But you mean
not some of them.
But you mean to tell me that under
all
this
of them,
bill,
all 15.
Under this bill, though, wouldn't each voter's vote mean more than it currently does?
Yes.
No, not than currently.
How?
Let's do simple math. I know Carrie's a lot better at at math than I am, but let's do the math. Does your vote weigh more as 1 out of 7 million, which it is now, as just the Michigan electorate is what counts, or 1 out of 150 million?
So
that's literally the choice that's put in front of us.
Never in Michigan's history has every single voter voted one way in a presidential election. And that's how I think it should be. I think every presidential candidate should campaign to every voter in every election in every state every time. So, of course, the person who gets the most votes should win, and it's based on what your district is.
But Representative, what about the fact that you have New York and California that have obviously the most population? At the end of the day, without the electoral system, wouldn't we essentially be letting New York and California decide our election?
No, we would not. How many people live in New York and California? Barely even 20% of our country lives there. You can't win the national popular vote if you only win 20%.
Why are candidates?
And you should know that there are more Republicans registered in California than there are people who even live in half of the Plain
States. Why are
states.
Candidates concentrating so heavily on those states and not paying attention to rural areas in America? Shouldn't those voters have a voice as well?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think every voter in every state in every election should have a say in who the president is. And right now, so many states are flown over, ignored, taken for granted.
Wow. James, you agree with that?
National popular vote would actually add Michigan to that list. There are only just a few battleground states, and we are one, and we no longer would be one.
So
why any person from Michigan would willingly give away that power?
Absolutely.
We're not a battleground state in every election.
Just for the idea that possibly we could select another Democrat or two. It's just short-sighted, and
Charlie Langton, I want to bring you into the fold
here. It could easily work out the other way.
You're
so
the
person
here.
Who doesn't get the most votes should win.
You're the attorney here, Charlie.
Win.
The Constitution of the United States.
The loser wins.
Do you think that this ultimately could be something that could work?
Well, she wants to, James makes a point about it's an end around the Constitution without going through the constitutional amendment process. So I want to know exactly how it works. But besides all that, let's take out the legalities as to whether or not this is challengeable and legal. The problem is you are given a lot of power to about 10 states, I think it is, and that's it. I agree with your point. But what about a third-party candidate? All you'd have to do is put a third-party candidate in there, and then what's going to happen? A third-party candidate could actually campaign
who gets
in a couple of markets and really skew the vote.
If there are 3
candidates, how fair is that?
And you look at how many votes each one of them gets, the person with the most would win. Isn't that what our country's founded on? So if you have 17 candidates, the one with the most votes would win.
James, do you think that the people who are watching this right now at home, Republican or Democrat, depending on the outcome of an election, really trust the electoral system and think that it serves them?
Roop, I think they're watching this and they're shocked. They don't know what we're talking about. No one's ever told them what House Bill 4156 does.
I think we made it pretty clear that
I'm talking about outside of this. I mean, even on the Fox News or Fox 2 website, very few mentions on the House and Senate floor in Michigan.
Please answer the question. Do you think the electoral system serves the state of Michigan and the voters who live here well?
Yes.
You do? You think it's fair and accurate?
I do, and I think that, again, if you might not have loved how 2016 turned out, but if the person who lost Michigan had won, that would be a first nationwide. There's 48 states that do winner take all. Michigan's one of them.
So let's do this. I don't know how much time we have. Let me understand the bill. In Michigan, let's assume, and let's say Biden won by 60%, Trump won by 40%. We have 15 electoral votes. You're not changing the system. The electoral votes, the 15 votes, remain the same. Tell me what happens in Michigan.
So I would like us to use the power that the United States Constitution gives to state legislatures to decide how to award our state's electoral college votes. And I would like our state to award our electoral college votes based on who wins the national popular vote.
I just gave you the numbers. 60 for Biden, 40 for Trump.
So our 15 electoral college votes would go to Biden because he wins the national popular vote under your hypothetical situation.
So the asterisk in that example is that it wouldn't matter how the people of Michigan voted.
Doesn't matter.
It does matter how the people of Michigan vote.
How does it matter how the people of Michigan voted in that situation?
Because the votes for Biden and the votes for Trump would be added together with all of the votes for Biden and Trump across
Again,
the
you're
whole
no
country.
longer one of 7 million, you're one of 150 million.
The person who gets
the winner of
the
the
most votes
presidency
should be
will
winning
win every
here.
single electoral vote, right?
No, not every single electoral.
I don't. Then I totally don't.
Well,
get
Charlie,
that.
not every state would be in the compact. So the way, so when
Yes.
We have a compact. So it only applies to some states, not all.
well, that's
the
exactly it.
states.
So when there's enough states that equal 270 electoral votes, the compact
How
will
is
go
that
live.
fair? So some states elect the president one way and another a different way?
And that's why I've written
That's
before
an
that this
end
is
around the
national
Representative
divorce.
Reinigen, do you think that that's fair?
I do think that's fair because I had to win the most popular votes in my district.
But that's a
and I
local
think that the
election, which is
president-
different than a national election, don't you think?
Every single elected position in our country, thousands of them, the person who wins the most popular votes wins that seat. But one, the presidency.
But you
Why
notice
is
that
that
you notice
fair?
how you
Because
put
it's in the
popular votes in
Constitution,
How is
there?
right?
that fair? How is that fair?
just do it
Can you
because
explain why
everyone
you
should-
want the person who
Wait a
gets
minute.
the second most votes wins? I don't get that.
That's the constitutional system we've
That's
all
the way to
known.
No.
So why did you just go
And
through
if
the
you want
constitutional
it,
system?
then
so
change it.
I never get a
Just
good
go
answer.
the wrong way.
Representative,
Is
you
there
keep
a good
saying
answer about the person who loses winning the
but you keep
election?
saying
I don't get that.
why is it that local races are decided one way and this race is decided another way?
So I guess what we should do
Just
is
that
the
little matter with the
cockamamie
US
scheme.
Constitution.
So look at my district. I have 5
Representative.
townships in Washtenaw County, 5 townships in Jackson County. Let's make the popular vote of each of those townships have 1 vote in who gets to win my district. That's a cockamamie scheme.
Representative,
I don't think that's how we should
understand
be
what you're
electing
saying.
So you're just throwing out babies with bathwater.
Hold on, James. One second. What I'm saying is you keep asking the question, if this was a local race, it's decided like this. The most number of votes gets the
That's the
pie.
principle of our country.
Of local elections, but
Of
the principle of the
every
country,
vote.
of the Constitution, is that an electoral system is in place. And Charlie's point was, wouldn't you have to do something to change the Constitution to make this
Nope,
work?
because we are using the power of the Constitution to award our Electoral College votes, as the Constitution allows us to do. As state legislatures, we can decide how to do that. And so we're deciding to use the power of the U.S. Constitution.
How many people
to
in this
award-
pack that you have are Democrats?
Oh, God, I don't know.
And how many Republicans?
There are 16 states plus D.C. who
Are they all Democrats?
Nope.
They're not.
This has been passed with Republican majorities in, I believe, Arizona. And the last time it passed off the House floor in Michigan was 2018. And I don't think the Democrats were in charge then.
James, when you hear the shoes on the other foot, depending on how Republicans are doing or how Democrats are doing, it seems like this is a convenient way to say, hey, this works for my party, my candidate now. Wouldn't you say that's kind of politically convenient to do it one way or the other, depending on who's in office?
As Kerry mentioned, in the past, Republicans have supported this.
Yeah.
That's actually more of a principled stand when, because the 2 incidents that have created national popular vote, 2000 election, Republican wins. 2016, Republican wins.
By losing
And you've still
the
had,
popular
but
vote.
you still had Republicans going ahead and say, let's go ahead and support national popular vote. I don't get why they would do it, which makes it principled.
What's your guess about what's going to happen?
I get why Democrats would do it.
What's your guess about what's going to happen when this hits the House floor after it leaves committee?
I mean, Democrats can do whatever they want. They hold all the gavels, right?
And so then Michigan-
but here's the problem that exists beyond Lansing and beyond
That the loser could win.
beyond even this whole system. The real problem you're going to run into 2 problems. Congress, they're going to want to review this. This is an interstate compact. And they say, oh, Congress doesn't have to review every
Congress does
interstate
not have to
compact.
review this.
If you think they're going to let
We're using the
if you think they're
constitutional
going to let a
powers
group
we
of
have.
blue
Representative
states
Reinigen,
steal the presidency, they're not.
We're going to give you a chance to answer what he just said on the other side of the break when we come back.
The way we elect the President of the United States by the Electoral College. Some people now want to change it and elect the President by popular vote. Good idea?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's a fraud. It's a scam. I think people of America are smart enough to read and understand what their candidates are saying and to have one man, one vote.
It's a popular vote ban.
Because it makes it so that the larger proportions will just like get so much, and it's like Texas already gets a lot, and then it's like, oh wow, they're getting like a lot, and then like California gets a lot, and then Rhode Island gets nothing. So
Keep the same Electoral College the way it is now.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So many things that influence the electoral vote that I think the founding fathers couldn't have seen coming.
Little states would have very little say in who is the president.
I think the president is of the United States, not of the individual states. So I think it would give the people of the United States more power as opposed to just individual states.
I don't believe in it.
But that's the way we've been doing it for years and years.
And look where we are now.
All right, final thoughts. Representative Ryan, again, 16 states have adopted this so far. Michigan could be next. What's the viability? You think it's a go?
Yes, I do think it's a go. This has a long history of bipartisanship, and I'm confident in working toward getting bipartisan votes when we get a floor vote in the near future. I really think it's important that we use the founding principle of our democracy, that every person in every state gets campaigned to in every election, and the person who gets the most votes should win.
And that's the bottom line about the legislation. How viable is this in your mind, James?
It's a bad bill, but Carrie's a good person. And so what I would like our viewers to do is to do what we did today. Talk.
Do your homework.
To each other.
Have a table, a discussion around your dining room table with friends and others, and it's glad we started that conversation right here in earnest. Good to see you, Representative Ryan. James, always good to see you. And that does it for this edition of Let It Rip.